This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
For a beautiful life, for a life of parnasa, of health, of happiness, of success. Who would say no to such a thing? Who could refuse such an offer? If the Chofetz Chaim himself would enter the Beis Medrash at this moment and would say that anybody that's guaranteed to have a beautiful life, a life of hatzlacha, a life of toiv, a life of bracha, a life of everything that's good that everybody dreams about, who wouldn't stay online? You would wait hours online for such a thing. And yet the Chofetz Chaim writes how wondrous it is that a person runs around, skullahs, rebbes, this skullah, this tzaddik, this bracha, all of them beautiful things. But says the Chofetz Chaim, Rabbi Isa, listen to the words of the Chofetz Chaim. We're speaking tonight to the most important Yesodis. In fact, if anybody ever went bowling, you'll always notice that the bowling ball is a very heavy piece. It's a heavy piece. It knocks down everything else. What we're discussing tonight is a very, very heavy piece. And it's a piece, as you'll see, Be'ez Hashem, that has the koyach to knock down many, many things. And Be'ez Hashem, give a person a tremendous opportunity, as we'll see. The Chofetz Chaim writes in Shmiras Lashon as follows. He doesn't understand, why is everybody running around? You're running to this bracha, this scholar, try this one, try that one. What are you doing it for? Says the Chofetz Chaim, if comes out of your mouth words of Lashon Hara, words that make other people look down, look bad, whatever it is, we'll discuss a little bit. If that comes out of your mouth, says the Chofetz Chaim, it doesn't help any of the brachas, it doesn't help any of the skullahs, it doesn't help all of the beautiful things. Dvarim should be kedusha that you uttered of your mouth means nothing. It's worthless because of words of Lashon Hara that come out of your mouth. And the Chofetz Chaim continues and he says as follows. Says the Chofetz Chaim, if I would give you some advice, it would be as follows. If people would listen to me, says the Chofetz Chaim, what should they be doing? If the Chofetz Chaim would walk through this door and say, Rabbi Isai, I have a few words of advice, the place would be pin drop silence. Advice from the Chofetz Chaim for a life of parnasa, a life of toiv, a life of bracha, a life of hatzlacha, children, shalom bayis, health, brias, everything that you want. Says the Chofetz Chaim, it's right over here. If you'd have my advice, says the Chofetz Chaim, it would be that a person should be careful in the words that come out of his mouth, the Lashon Hara that he utters against other people, that we'll explain a little bit more as we go on. Says the Chofetz Chaim, you do that, you're guaranteed. The key, the ingredient to a successful life is to watch the words that come out of your mouth about other people. That, says the Chofetz Chaim, is the secret ingredient. You want the ingredient to life. Which person in this Beis Medrash right now doesn't want to walk away tonight and at the end of the year with a way, with an ingredient, with a key, with a pesach of how to have the most successful life? The Chofetz Chaim has told us this is the mahalach. And in fact, the Chofetz Chaim writes, how careful a person has to be from the following aveira. That if a person is not careful in this aveira, he gets chas v'shalom la'aleinu rachmana litzlana klala from the entire klal Yisrael, whatever that means. There's a Gemara in Avodah Zarah Daf Yotes, famous Gemara. Everybody knows the Gemara. Everybody learns Sefer Chofetz Chaim knows the Gemara. The Gemara says in Avodah Zarah Daf Yotes, Rabbi Alexandria went around shouting in the marketplace, "Man boyachaya, man boyachaya." Who wants life? Who wants life? And everybody started running around. What is he selling? Give me the potion. Give me the key. What's the secret formula? Give me the pill. Give me the tablet. What can it be? Unbelievable. And they gathered around him. And he said, tells us the Gemara, is mir isha Chofetz Chaim oiv yomim liras toy nitzor shon chameira. That means if you guard your mouth and you're careful what comes out and you don't knock other people down, say Chazal, and this is what the Torah is telling us, and this is what Chazal is teaching us. If you want life, that's how you do it. The Chidah has an interesting question. Asks the Chidah, why does he say man boyachaya twice? Who wants life and who wants life? Just say it once, who wants life? What is it? Who wants life? Who wants life? So the Chidah answers as follows. And he tells us, who wants life olam hazeh and who wants life in olam haba. That means we're not only discussing right now life in the next world, what's going to happen in Shamayim after 120 Beis Hashem. No! We're discussing this world down here. There's no doubt in anybody's mind that if a person is careful from Lashon Hara, the life on this planet, on this world, is a sweeter life. I personally am involved in stories of people that are involved in Lashon Hara that it literally ate up their entire life. These people were not left with a life afterwards. It can ruin somebody completely. It can completely ruin someone's reputation, someone's life, someone's livelihood by the few words that you uttered, meaningless. Like, what do you think? What's the big deal? What did I say already? Rabbi Chazal are telling us, and we spoke about this previously, the koyach of a word, the koyach of something that I say to somebody can affect him for generations and generations. If only we would understand what that means. The Chofetz Chaim brings the Vilna Gaon, the famous Vilna Gaon, that says that if a person muzzles his mouth at that moment, when that juicy gossip, you've got that really good piece of information to tell over, like somebody just told you over something and you're dying to tell somebody else, like this is a great juicy one, right? Nobody knows that one, those are the best ones, right? Nobody knows it, like I'm going to tell everybody, oh, what juicy. And you feel so, really, he did that? Oh, really, he went there? That's like, oh, you feel so good about yourself, right? Because you put somebody else down. So by putting somebody else down, you feel yourself, oh, who am I? I'm a lot better than that. Says the Chofetz Chaim, M'shem the Vilna Gaon, that at that moment, at the moment when you could have said something, you said, you know what? I'm not going to say it. I heard the share, it's terrible, I want bracha, I want hatzlacha, I want shalom bayis, I want children, I want everything in the world. I'm not going to say it. Says the Vilna Gaon, that moment, you've no idea the light, the schar, that you are getting, the reward you're getting up there in Shamayim. You're building yourself a Gan Eden, you're building yourself Olam Haba. Says the Vilna Gaon, there's not one malach in the world that can actually understand the light and the reward that you'll be getting from that unbelievable act of refraining yourself. As I state in going, the Chofetz Chaim brings it. And the Chofetz Chaim brings a famous mashal as well, and he says as follows: what happens, sometimes you have these people that come around, selling svarim. They come a whole cart, a whole car, a whole this, a whole that, and they put out all the svarim and everything else, and you go from shul to shul, and you can buy some svarim, wonderful. What happens, says the Chofetz Chaim, if you're outside a certain place and you see one of these people, you're like, wow, look at that beautiful leather shas. I don't have a nice leather shas at home. I want a leather shas. Beautiful. So you go and ask him, how much is it? He tells you, think about it. You know what? I'd like to take it. And you start pulling out the money, and he starts putting it in the box, and you take it home, and your face is beaming. You're so excited. This is unbelievable, a leather shas. And you start making space on the svarim shrine, right? Taking off this, taking off that, replacing it with the leather shas. Beautiful. And you say to yourself, it's a beautiful leather shas on the outside, but maybe I should open it up. So you open it up, and lo and behold, this beautiful leather shas that you just purchased is empty. There's nothing there. There's absolutely nothing there. Says the Chofetz Chaim, such a scary thought. We're in this world, hopefully for 120 good years. And during these years, we're trying to learn Torah, we're trying to daven, we're trying to do mitzvahs, we're trying to do chesed. We're trying to be a good Jew. And we think, you know how it works, every time you do a good Jew, another light, lights up over there, whatever it is, another ticket, gets printed out in the machine, and then eventually I can go and cash it in up there after 120. So we're all excited after 120. Here's the time I can go and I can recover everything that I've worked the last 120 years. Says the Chofetz Chaim, what a shame. What an embarrassment. You're going to get up to Shamayim. You're going to say, all right, come on, give him a mitzvahs, give him a schar. It's going to be empty. That beautiful leather shas on the outside looks so gorgeous, but in the inside is empty. Says the Chofetz Chaim, all of your Torah, all of your tefillah, all of your gemilas chasodim, everything that you've done beautiful, none of it is going to help you if you speak words of Lashon Hara. And as we'll explain, it goes even further than that, as we'll see. A terrible, terrible thing. It just goes on v'noira. We'll just say one more thing as before we continue. We know that there were certain averas that caused the Churban Habayis. The Beis Hamikdash is no longer with us. We don't have Karbonis. We don't have the Shechina dwelling with us to the same madrega as it was at the Tzman of the Beis Hamikdash and all the other Nisim that went on at the time. What was it that caused it? So there's a Gemara in Yuma Daf Tes. Famous Gemara. The Gemara in Yuma tells us the first Beis Hamikdash was the three big ones, right? The three big averas. Gil Arayis, Shvichas Domim, and Avodah Zarah. That is what caused the first Beis HaMikdash. The second Beis HaMikdash, says the Gemara in Yuma, was caused by Sinas Chinam. Says the Chofetz Chaim in the Hagdama, to say B'Shmiras HaLashon, what does it mean, Sinas Chinam? And he brings rayas from Rishonim and Gemaras and Chazal that tell us Sinas Chinam means Lashon Hara. And therefore it was destroyed. The second Beis HaMikdash was destroyed because of Lashon Hara. The Talmidim of Rebbe Lezer asked their Rebbe Lezer, tell us, which one was worse? The first or the second? The Aveiros that caused the first one to be destroyed, or the Aveiros that caused the second? And Rebbe Lezer answered the Dover Poshet, the first Beis HaMikdash was rebuilt. The second one, unfortunately, hasn't yet been rebuilt. And the Chofetz Chaim writes in Hagdama that if it's got the koyach, sinas chinam, lashon hara, our simple words that we speak to our roommates, our simple words we speak to our chavrusas, our parents, our rebbeim, our friends, whoever it is, and we speak about somebody else in a bad way, those simple words have the koyach not only to destroy the Beis HaMikdash, but to keep it from being rebuilt as well. And every single time that something comes out of our mouth in a way that it shouldn't, we're doing something more to withhold the Beis HaMikdash from being rebuilt, and the Shechina from being with us, and the Shechina and the Klal Yisrael together with the Rebbeinu Shalom, and we have to realize that. There was a Maisa once in Radin, it was Purim, the Brochen got a little bit shaker, and one of the boys came up to the Chofetz Chaim, the Heilige Chofetz Chaim, and they said to the Rebbe, a little bit drunk at the time, the boy, he said, Rebbe, I want to sit with you in Gan Eden. Wow, what a thing, imagine. Everyone's like, wow, I want to sit with you in Gan Eden, me and the Chofetz Chaim. Can you imagine such a thing? Wow. So the Chofetz Chaim got a little bit serious, and he said to the boy, okay, promise me one thing. If you don't speak Lashon Hara from now, for the rest of your life, I will guarantee you'll be sitting with me in Olam Haba. And the Bachor, who was drunk, was like, whoa, suddenly got shaken up. And he said, I can't do that. I can't take that upon myself. And the Chofetz Chaim said, get him out of here. The Chofetz Chaim was upset. He had an opportunity to get Olam Haba to sit together with the Chofetz Chaim. And he actually, can't do it. What's the pshat? Because people are mezalzel. People don't know the chashivas of what it means, Lashon Hara, and how easy it is to stop if you realize how bad it is. I want to tell you a couple of things that it's scary. It's scary, this, but we have to know the reality. You know what I'm going to tell you here, how good you are, and everything's great. Rabbi Isai, I'm telling you the way it is. This is the way the Chofetz Chaim tells us. The Chofetz Chaim doesn't waste a word. Every word is Torah Kedosha. And we have to understand what he's saying. The Chofetz Chaim asked the following kasha. You know, we daven all the time, Shachris, Mincha, Mariv, somebody's sick, we daven, we need parnasa, we daven, we need children, we daven, we need to get married, we daven, whatever we need, we daven. You know, it's coming to us, we daven, and so, come on, why am I not getting it? The Chofetz Chaim says, how is it we daven? Sometimes we just not answer, it's just not going, what's the pshat? Says the Chofetz Chaim, Pashat. If the words that come out of a mouth, we mentioned this last time, like the Chofetz Chaim's mashal, that a mouth is like a beautiful instrument. And if you ruin the instrument and you break the strings of the instrument by speaking badly against others, the instrument's just not going to play. You have a beautiful knife, a sharp knife, and it can cut beautifully smooth, slice everything, it's great. You make it rusty, you keep it out in the rain a little bit, it gets a bit rusty, it doesn't work. Your mouth is a beautiful knife, it can slice. The moment you make rust on it, you speak words, Lashon Hara, says the Chofetz Chaim, or Peter Zoya, that the koyach hatuma rests on those words, they don't make it up there. We assume our words go straight to Kisei HaKavod, says the Chofetz Chaim, normally they do. But if your mouth is the same mouth that speaks Lashon Hara, don't wonder why you're not getting answered. Don't wonder why your tefillahs just don't seem to be coming into any action, anything lamaisa, because of that. And it goes more than that. Rabbeinu Yonah says, right? Rabbeinu Yonah, Rabbi Yisai Rishon. Rabbeinu Yonah writes that a person that speaks Lashon Hara, his tefillahs go there and they hover in the air somewhere between here and Kisei HaKavod, wherever it is. And it waits there and it waits there and it waits there until a person does tshuva. The moment a person does tshuva, and Rabbi Yisai, I believe that everybody sitting here right now is already thinking about different shiurim about tshuva, so I think we're already being yotze to this Rabbeinu Yonah. The moment we speak and we think and we have an idea of tshuva, those tefillahs that we were waiting to be answered, rush up to Kisei HaKavod. You know what that means? It's unbelievable. But it goes a step further. And this is scary. This is scary. If I would offer you a formula, if I would offer you a pill, if I would offer you a potion, a key, that every aveira that you have done won't go up there, won't make it up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, won't get mentioned in Shemayim, what would you pay me? How much money would you give me if I would guarantee you, give me a certain amount of money, I will guarantee the aveiros that you did just won't make it up. It's just unbelievable. We're saved from it. I don't know about you guys, I speak for myself obviously, but this is unbelievable. You know how much that's worth to have such a thing? Listen to the words of the Chofetz Chaim. Again, it's all up here Chazal, it's up here Rishonim. The Chofetz Chaim tells us as follows, that he says that the Rebbeinu Shalom, as we know Chazal tell us, works midah keneged midah. However, we act Shemayim as a reflection to that, which means if we speak badly against other people and we knock others and we speak about their issues to make ourselves look better, then in Shemayim they're saying, oh, you're speaking about him, let's speak about you. So the moment you speak Lashon Hara, those couple of sentences that come out of your mouth, no, what's the big deal? In Shemayim, do you have any idea what's going on? In Shemayim, what's going on? All the aveiros that you have done. It's unbelievable. Every aveira that you performed, whatever it was, looking at the wrong thing, saying the wrong thing, hearing the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing, not doing tefillah, all the aveiros, just rush up straight to Shemayim and straight to Kisei Kovod. Why? Because you just spoke against somebody else. In Shemayim, they're going to speak about you also. And the opposite, here's the key, Rabbi Isai. Says the Chofetz Chaim, Rabbi Isai, every word, Torah Kedosha. Says the Chofetz Chaim, that if a person prevents himself, withholds himself, and doesn't say those things that he shouldn't, he doesn't speak about others in a bad way, in a derogative manner, in a way that they're going to be upset, they're going to harm them in any way. Says the Chofetz Chaim, if you do that, you got yourself the most unbelievable guarantee in the world that your aveiros will never be mentioned. That means you could do all the aveiros. Chas v'shon, you shouldn't. But if a person would, they just don't go there. They just don't get mentioned. They just don't get mentioned. So the Lashon Hara that you're saying, Chazal are telling us, is that bowling ball. That bowling ball that goes right up to Shemayim, knocks all the aveiros up, and gets mentioned in heaven. Which person wants to have every aveira that they've ever done mentioned in Shemayim? At the moment they're speaking about him, speaking about somebody else. Say Chazal, at that moment, Shem Yirachem Rabbi Isai. If you want a guarantee, if you want the key to make sure that your aveiros will never be mentioned in Shemayim, here it is. Just don't speak against others. Stop speaking badly against others, says the Chofetz Chaim. If you do that midah keneged midah, they'll stop speaking about you in Shemayim in the same way. David HaMelech writes, there was a Maisa, Moshe Aaron Stern once said over a Moedika Maisa, who was once staying in a certain place. And whenever he was staying there, the couple over there were discussing things, they were talking, and he heard them discussing Lashon Hara. Like he heard the couple over there, the husband and wife, right? They were in the dining room, whatever, he was in the other room learning, and he heard them, they were saying Lashon Hara. He didn't know what to do. So he had an eitzah. He slipped into the room, and had a tape recorder with him. And he pressed play in the tape recorder. And he recorded their conversation about how they were speaking against somebody else. Oh, mamash, a juicy conversation of Lashon Hara. He recorded the whole thing. The next morning he says to them, what happened last night? What did you discuss? No idea. You know how the conversations work. We never know. I don't remember what I said. I don't remember anything. It wasn't important. So he says, come, I want to show you something. And he presses, play. And they listen to they are shocked. You know how embarrassing that is? You know how embarrassing it is to realize that somebody was listening to everything that you say? Says with Moshe Aaron Stern, oy vavoy to us. You know how embarrassing it's going to be in Shemayim? That was 2 hours of a conversation in one night. There's a record button being played every moment of our lives that we're in this earth. When we get up there, the play button is going to be pressed. And then all of a sudden, in front of whoever's going to be there, they're going to sit there listening to every word that came out of your mouth. That's a little bit embarrassing. I speak for myself again. Rabbi said we have to realize how bad this is. And we have to realize more than this. David HaMelech said a wonderful thing. David HaMelech said in Tehillim, Mi ish Chofetz Chaim oiv yomim liras toiv. Nitzol shoin chameres v'secha medaber mirma. The Chofetz Chaim in Shmiras Lashon asks a question. Says the Chofetz Chaim, there are Tariag mitzvahs. How many mitzvahs are there? Tariag mitzvahs. Why did David HaMelech pick this one? One out of all of them. Why? There's Tariag, there's so many. You could have said this on so many things. You want light, you want good, you want brachas and atzlachas. Yeah, put on tefillin, keep Shabbos, make brachas. There's loads of things to say. What's Lashon Hara? What's going on? So the Chofetz Chaim answers as follows, why David HaMelech picked Lashon Hara. And he says the luchos, we know the Torah is split up. The luchos are split up equally. 5 and 5. Ben Adam l'Mokaim, Ben Adam l'Chaveiroi. And they're equal. That means the same importance we give on Ben Adam l'Mokaim, we have to give also Ben Adam l'Chaveiroi. There's 2 halakim. So David HaMelech is saying, it's not enough just to be a good Jew. I'm a good Jew, a good dafyomi, I'll say some tehillim, I make a bracha, I keep Shabbos, I'm a good Jew, I'm alright. Me and God are tight, I'm alright, I'm a good guy, right? Leave me alone. No. David HaMelech is saying, you've got to keep Ben Adam l'Chaveiroi as well. Ben Adam l'Chaveiroi, and the Chofetz Chaim explains the eitzah to Ben Adam l'Chaveiroi is Lashon Hara. Because if you'll go through it, and we haven't got time tonight to go through it, Lashon Hara, by the way, is the Pesach to every other Aveira in Ben Adam l'Chaveiroi. Because after Lashon Hara, he looks down at you and you start not judging him properly, and Anas Devarim, and all the problems of Ben Adam l'Chaveiroi come. Why? Because you said Lashon Hara against somebody else. And therefore, if a person saves himself and prevents himself and guards his tongue, what happens? He's memela keeping in the best possible way Ben Adam l'Chaveiroi, in a way that he has shown that he's doing it properly. The Master Rosh Yeshiva, Zatzal used to write, he used to say that people learn Chofetz Chaim, it's good to learn it, it's wonderful, right? The Master Rosh Yeshiva, everybody knows, says there's not one family in Klal Yisrael that didn't start learning it, that didn't see Yeshua. Everybody sees Yeshua, it's a tremendous thing. But he says, sometimes people miss the boat. You can learn something, but you just miss the boat. What do you miss? You miss what the yesod of Lashon Hara is. It's not just about careful what comes out of your mouth. It's more than that. It's not hurting other people. That's the yesod. It's not causing tsar to your fellow friend. To give him the correct cover. It's Ben Adam l'Chaveiroi. It's mamash the yesod of Gans Ben Adam l'Chaveiroi is Lashon Hara. And Moshe Pingus used to say, when you go to a building site, Chofetz Chaim brings it also. When you go to a building site, so the more dangerous the site, or the more closer you're getting to the dangerous part, the more signs you'll see. If it's like a site that's nothing really going on, so there'll be, don't enter, that's it. When you get to one of these really bad ones, they'll tell you, gas poisoning, and there's a dog guard, and there's a this, and there's a that. Because the worse something is, the more warnings we have to give you. Look how many times the Torah mentions Lashon Hara in different forms. The Chofetz Chaim in the Akdama discusses it. And he says, you see how many times there's warnings about Lashon Hara. Why? Because that's how important it is. That's how choshev it is. People think, Shmiras Lashon, it's impossible. What are you going to tell me? Okay, I can't speak Lashon Hara. Cold turkey, tomorrow morning, everybody. No more Lashon Hara. That's it, right? It's the easiest thing in the world. It's impossible. What do you want from me, Rabbi? I can't do these things. That's impossible, right? So the Master Rosh Yeshiva used to say, it's not that way. We look at it as something hard, but you know why it's hard? Because we're not used to it. We look at it as, I'll give you an example. Did anybody here ever wake up on a Shabbos morning and think to himself, should I drive to shul or should I walk to shul? I don't think anybody really has that sort of shaila on a Shabbos morning. What's the pshat? Because you're used to it. You don't drive on Shabbos, right? Same thing he says also. Rosh Hashanah. You're standing there a whole day in shul. Come on, a whole day Rosh Hashanah. Mamish, it's hours and hours of davening to get a shofar. You're standing up. I'm not allowed to speak. All these things. You ever heard anybody complain? Anybody, it's so long. Or, I can't speak during the tekias. No, you're used to it. It's just something that's just Morgan. It's something that's normal. You grew up with it. It's okay. If a person would become used to this, it wouldn't be difficult. It would be easy. When you start watching the words that come out of your mouth, when you realize what the potential these words have to not only yourself, but to your friends, the whole Klal Yisrael, then you'll start watching what comes out. And the Master Rosh Yeshiva used to suggest that if a person tries 10 less words a day, it's approximately 3,000 less words of Lashon Hara a year. That's a lot. The Gemara in Kedushin Daf Lamed Tes tells us that if you don't do an Aveira, you get a mitzvah. Which the Chofetz Chaim says every single time you don't say Lashon Hara, you have a word to say and you don't say it, every word is a malach. You're creating more and more and more beautiful malachim. A few years ago, I don't have to tell anybody, there was a meat scandal, right? A Kashrus situation in Muncie. Wow, what a shaila, everybody goes crazy, how can it be? How can you do it? That's not our topic. But the shailas that came out with the meat, and they went onto the plates, and they went onto the oven, and the oven to the spoon, and the oven to this. The shailas, the yisurim, people were over in yisurim, and the caterers, and the bakeries, and it went delivered all over New York. Yeah, everyone was going crazy. Rabbi said, I once heard this, I think it's beautiful, I don't know where I heard it, but I wrote it down, I think it's moyedik. You can go to shul for 10 minutes. You can be on your phone for 10 minutes. And you've done more aveiras than the entire Muncie scandal over there in your 10-minute conversation in shul. A simple, innocent conversation. And you've done more aveiras than that person over there. Because the words that come out can ruin somebody's life, can ruin somebody's parnasa, shidduchim. I personally know stories that I'm involved in the shidduchim were people that never got married. Why? Because of Lashon Hara. I can tell you personally who they were. Personally. The Poshet Lashon Hara has ruined people's lives, and you think an innocent statement like, what the big deal? I'm just saying it. Rabbi said, the koyach of your words, the koyach of every single word. 2 eights I just want to give you is as follows. Number one of the yisodos why a person speaks Lashon Hara. Why does a person speak Lashon Hara? What does it drive you to speak badly against somebody else? Who do you think you are? That's number one. The Chofetz Chaim says, right? You think you want to make yourself better. I want to be bigger. So I speak about him being bad. I'm all the way up there, right? That's okay. But really the truth, if you really go to the root of the problem, I think Rav Pam Zatzal used to say similar to this as well, that he said that if you want to treat Lashon Hara, so for example, if you have an illness, so you can, take some painkillers. Take painkillers. You don't feel it. But that's not how you get rid of it. How you get rid of it is go to the root of the problem. If you want to treat Lashon Hara, of course, Shmiras HaLashon, everyone should learn it. But if you want to go to the root of the problem, you know what the root of the problem said Rav Pam of Lashon Hara is? Don L'Kav Zchus. If you learn to be Don L'Kav Zchus, to look at others in a positive light, to look at others well, we're so easy at looking at others in a bad way. Rav Shagafaiva Mendelovich used to say that we have 2 eyes. Why do we have 2 eyes? One to look at the good and one to look at the bad. We look at the bad, it's natural. But look at the good. I'll give you an example, right? A boch in yeshiva. You go down to supper, boch in yeshiva, the schnitzel trays come in, this guy's the first guy to schlep one out, right? Mama, he's piling up there, and he schleps one out. Every single day, the same situation. Like, come on. And you start telling, my roommate, this guy, Mama, he's a pig, he does this, he always has to this. It's not nice. Did you think for a moment that maybe this fellow comes from a family of 17 children, and in his house there are only 12 pieces of schnitzel, and 12 pieces of schnitzel means there's a few kids going hungry, and his entire life he grew up, maybe I'm going to go hungry today. So he posted by him, he's so grown up, ready for schnitzel. If you understand that, you realize that, you think to yourself, oh, that's okay then. If you were told that, then I wouldn't have a problem. The Torah is mechayiv has to be done L'Kav Zchus. You go to a bus, right? You wait for a bus stop, and as you're getting there, the bus driver slams on your face, and off he goes. You're like, chutzpah! You start saying this about him, this about him. Oh, he's a this, he's a this. 1 second. Did you realize that maybe he had a terrible day? Did you realize that maybe his daughter's been up all night with chickenpox, and he's been, he hasn't slept the entire night as well? If you would think for a moment about somebody else's situation, maybe you wouldn't speak badly about him. Don L'Kav Zchus, in order to be Don L'Kav Zchus, it's such a gewaldige Zach that helps a person from not speaking Lashon Hara. Rabbi say, we're dealing with an Issa over here, I'm finishing now. We're dealing with an Issa over here, we're dealing with the Yesod, we're dealing with something that is a real foundation. And if we get this now while we're young, this can help us forever and ever and again. We're not only dealing with the next world. Your life in this world will be a better life. It will be more peaceful, it will be more shalom, it will be nice, everyone will be happy with you, everyone will like you, because you're not somebody to look at other people's faults. The Rebbeinu Shalom gave us a mouth. It's a koyach of dibur, which an animal doesn't have. It's the one and only thing that separates us from an animal, is the koyach of dibur. We have a koyach of dibur. We have to use it properly. Rabbi said there are people out there, I don't have to tell you, who are sick. There are people out there, Rahman al-Islam, that don't have this opportunity to speak. There are people out there that don't have what we have. We have such a koyach. If we would use it correctly, we can use our mouth for tefillah, for Torah, for giving us chasodim, to make somebody else feel good, instead of using it for the bad, and instead of using it to make other people feel bad. And maybe if we do that, we have the haftacha from the Chofetz Chaim, Api Chazal, that if we do that, then in Shamayim, what's going on in Aveiros, in Shamayim, what's going on with our Torah, with our tefillahs and everything, then Be'ez Hashem, the Rebbeinu Shalom should give us the siyata d'shmaya. I want to finish with one last thing the Master Rosh Yeshiva used to say about learning Sefer Shmiras Lashon, about learning the Chofetz Chaim. He said as follows: a tremendous toyeles to learn, and that is as follows. Number one, obviously, it's a type of tshuva, and it's a type of tshuva. Rabbeinu Yonah says that all the tefillahs go up to Shamayim, but it goes further than that. Says the Master Rosh Yeshiva Zatzal, the Etzem It's a Chofetz Chaim. The Chofetz Chaim says, we know, Chazal tell us that a Baalei Lashon Hara don't have chelik in Olam Haba. A Baalei Lashon Hara. What does it mean, a Baalei Lashon Hara? What does that mean? Does that mean everybody that speaks Lashon Hara is a Baal Lashon Hara? Chas v'sholom, no. Person speaks Lashon Hara, all right. But he's not a Baal Lashon Hara. A Baal Lashon Hara means somebody that's mouth is hefka. He's got nothing on it, doesn't keep to anything. It just says whatever he wants. The Baalei Lashon Hara say Chazal eino chelik b'olam haba. But if a person learns Shmiras HaLashon, person opens up a Sefer Chofetz Chaim in English, in Hebrew, Mostei Afkamina, whatever it is that helps you, it's great. So Memele, what it did was it took you out of being a Baalei Lashon Hara, and if it takes you out of being a Baalei Lashon Hara, then Memele, a person will get Olam Haba. When you get Olam Haba, you get Schus, you get the Gavaldige Mitzvahs, and Be'ez Hashem, the Rebbeinu Shalom should give us all siyata d'shmaya to make sure that we keep this halacha and we zip up our mouth to speak badly.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.